One of the best experiences at Anderson is called the Global Access Program, where they partner a team of 5 students with an international company, and you get to have real life experience working with business issues for 6 months. Now, when you start the GAP program, you think, can I do this? This is a 500 hours that I need to put towards this program. But I can say that I now believe that what you put into the GAP program, you will get more out of. After being in the GAP program, I was able to work with another company and do the exact same work, help develop a business plan for them in exchange for an equity stake in the firm.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think, the defining part of the whole FEMBA experience. It's something that really no other university or business school program can offer, and they've got full-time faculty and staff dedicated towards GAP. And like Daphne, I really made a conscious effort to put as much effort into it as I can. I talked to my wife, and I was basically a deadbeat dad for 6 months, but I think that dedication and matched sort of my team members' dedication. And even though the ultimate recommendation for the company we were consulting was, don't do this expansion. I mean, we just got so much out of it, just not only working together, but traveling across Eastern Europe and all throughout Italy. Our executive, was a great host, and took us around, took us to dinner, put us up in a nice hotel, and that opportunity actually led us to the dean of the business school, who asked us to basically do another GAP type of consulting project for her and for UCLA in regards to a possible educational program set up in India. And so, that in itself was also a great opportunity and experience to work with the dean of the business school. So, GAP, definitely is something you want to take advantage of, and it's something unique to UCLA.
I think GAP directly is what got me the job that I'm going to at Chevron, because coming from an environmental science background, going to work for an oil company is a bit of a switch, but I did my GAP project for a company in New Zealand that does retail automation for petroleum stations, and they were looking to enter the India market. And I interviewed with Chevron towards the end of GAP, and by that point, I knew about the oil industry, knew the lingo, was able to go into my interview and talk the talk with all the executives there, and I think that was really something that they were impressed with. But what I do want to say about GAP, and I hope I'm allowed to say this, is it was really, really a real experience. It's not the sheltered, you're in this bubble of school and everything's gonna work out perfectly, because it doesn't. It's real life, it's real business. So just to give you an example, our team had to go to India, and we ran into the train bombing in Mumbai, a couple strikes, a coup, and a riot. But you know what? We got the job done, because that's what doing business is about. It doesn't matter what happens. Life goes on, and everything's going to be okay.
It's not always like that, though. Our company was in Italy, and it was high-end jewelry. So sometimes it can be a very easy company. And if you like the GAP experience, you can go back and become a GAP fellow. There are 9 of us that are helping to motivate and provide direction to the next class. So now, after we've done the business plan and learned that side of the house, we now get to put on more of an HR role and try to be more of a motivator, and how do you boost morale, because it is a long 6 months, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and it feels good, when you can turn in a 100-page business plan, do a 20-minute presentation, and deflect all kind of Q&A from industry experts that the GAP faculty bring on to judge your business plan and presentation. I mean, you don't realize how much you've really learned until the very end, and then you realize you have 6 months to go to graduation.
So GAP, just to state right up front, is no joke. I mean, this is huge. It's it's a little overwhelming at times, especially in the last month or so. Our group managed to pace ourselves fairly well, so we weren't hit as badly as some other groups were. But Gap is one of those things where you don't see it coming for a couple of months, and suddenly it's on top of you, and you got to deal with it all at once. So, I mean, I guess what advice I could offer is really start thinking about it way ahead of time and do your legwork in the very beginning, because that's all going to pay off at the end. The company that we did our project with was an Australian company that made auto parts. And there were two things right there that none of us in my group knew anything about: Australia and auto parts. So what do? The faculty here do a pretty good job of keeping us on track and helping us along on how to do our research. When we were over there, we were able to use a lot of the tools that we learned here to do our research and really implement a lot of the ideas that we had going into this project, so that by the time we came back, we could make sense of all the things that we learned over there. But yeah, make no mistake, this thing is a huge project, and 6 months might sound like a long time, but it's not. I mean, it'll jump all over you before you know it.
That's true. So GAP is basically the culmination of everything you've learned at Anderson put in practice. You end up doing marketing, you do financial statement analysis, you present financial statements, you do the strategy for the company, and basically what it is you're a group of 5 student consultants to a real company, an international company that wants to, whether they want to expand their product line to the US or within their region, they come to you for assistance, and they're basically getting 5 MBAs to do all the work for them.
Right.
And for us, it's a great project because you're practicing everything you've learned and true consulting, and this is to professionals that at the end of the day, if everything goes well, some of these companies actually get invested in. So you get to practice everything you've learned, but at the same time you do it while you're still on campus. So if you make a mistake, you learn from it on campus rather than in the real world. And I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah. And you have many advisors, you've got other students that'll help you out. And like Howard said, the last month probably is the most amount of work, because that's when your 50 to 100 page business plan is due. That's when your presentations to investors and clients are due. And it gets to be a lot of work. And that's when you learn a lot about each other, because when you're up every night until midnight trying to hammer out this business plan and hammer out the presentation, you end up delegating to certain people to do certain tasks, because there's no way all of you can do it individually. So, you end up delegating, saying, hey, you do this portion, I do this portion. And at the end of the day, it all comes together. I haven't seen anyone not finish what they had to do. It's just the group dynamics could be different, and you just have to make sure you pick the right members, because there are going to be a lot of stressful moments that you have to be able to get along with each other.
Yeah. And you actually hit on 2 pretty important points too. One is the safety, because it is an academic environment, so we do have people that we can go to ask, should we do something before we actually do it. But on the flip side, there's a real company behind it, and this is somebody's livelihood. And this is what was in the back of my mind the whole time, was that whatever we recommend for this company could very well determine whether they make payroll next month. Mm-hmm. So sure. Between those 2 dynamics, it made for a very interesting experience.
I think the one word that comes to my mind is adversity for GAP. It's just, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. Gap, right? Yeah, I think it is actually. You're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn a lot about your group, and very importantly, you're going to learn a lot about managing a client, which is something that a lot of students have never had involvement with.
Oh, you had a fun one too.
Ours was interesting. So our project was around a New Zealand-based company that had developed smart fabrics, smart technology. So a lot of the firms in GAP are technology-based. This one had some talks with a U.S.-based distributor and felt that the U.S. was the right route to go at this time. They had actually secured Series A financing as well. So they had cash. They had about 18 months or so left at their current burn rate. And ultimately, over the course of the 6 months, we dissected their business plan as what they had, recognized that there were some flaws in what the VC firm had saw. A few of our members traveled down to New Zealand. I stayed in the U.S. and did some primary research traveling in the U.S., specifically meeting with people in that industry. And what we found out with about 3 months to go, 2.5 months to go, is that there was not going to be a market for that product in the U.S., nor even in New Zealand, and they didn't even recognize that. Yeah. And I think when we had to sit down and talk with the CEO about that, that was very tough. And you're talking about, it's a company where that person's livelihood is based on this technology, this product, and you're telling them there's not a market for that. And we could have stopped right there. And we definitely leveraged the resources of Anderson. We met with a number of faculty members that have very specific expertise in intellectual property and technology, and also in organizational issues. Nice. And I think at that point we could have finished our business plan, said don't come to the US, just focus and really try to generate as much cash as you can in the short term and close up shop. But we, as a group, we were actually able to find a whole different niche that they had never thought about. And based off all the interviews and hundreds of hours of interviews that were done overseas in the US, we actually were able to switch to the medical industry and find a use for this product that could help those with diabetes and help prevent ulcers and ulcerations, which is a huge problem in the US, as well as the world. And we put them in touch with the head of Dr. Scholl's for potential distribution opportunities, as well as researchers all throughout the US that were more than willing to sit down and to use them as sort of beta sites to develop the technology. And I think that those experiences, my takeaway is that not just in Gap and whatever you're doing, when one door closes, another one is there to potentially walk through. You just need to be cognizant of the fact that sometimes things aren't going to go as planned. You just have to be versatile, and like I said, you have to be able to deal with adversity and shift. And I think the MBA experience and all the courses that we took up to that point gave us, I hate to use the word tools, but it gave us the tools to really understand the direction, what needed to be done financially, on the marketing side, on PR, additional R&D. And I think all of that and having that understanding, I don't think any of us have that understanding before Anderson. And so, my perspective, that really is the master's thesis, if you will. And it should not be taken lightly, as Howard said, by any means. It's a beast. But at the end of the day, in December, when we're all done, we all sit around and you're going to be very proud of the job that you've done. The executives are going to be in from their respective countries, and I think again, it's just another bonding experience. It's just another great opportunity to learn about yourself, learn about others that are close to you, and continue to grow.
I thought you brought up something interesting there too. Is that a lot of the things that we brought to the project weren't necessarily things that we learned in the classroom. Such as telling a company CEO bad news. And that was learned on the fly, and that's a skill I think that is going to serve us very well going forward. Even though we didn't learn it out of the book or in the classroom, but it's something that we're going to take away out of the project too, because we also had to do the same thing, and it was a tough phone call to do. Imagine calling somebody long distance in Australia, telling them that what they spent the last 5 years working on suddenly isn't going to go anywhere. That's not a fun conversation, but it's one that has to be had. And we learn along the way how to do those things. And it's funny, I had an interview yesterday where I brought up Gap. Somebody had waved a business plan in front of me, and my first thought was, wow, our Gap plan was much better than that one. But then she said to me, said, look, I want you to produce a better plan than this, and I have the confidence that I can do it because we've done it, and that's what you walk away from this project with. That kind of confidence.
I think one of the most memorable experiences was the opportunity to meet with senior, C-level folks at Nordstrom's in the men's shoe department. We were consulting for this Finnish company which makes custom-made shoes for men, and they were looking to enter the US market and just grow in Europe. And they were having a hard time, how do you grow the revenue and how do you become more profitable? And on our side, we were trying to do some market research and really talk to the right people to see if their product will be a good fit for the US market. And we said, okay, we got to go find out who's the best. And the best in men's shoes is Nordstrom's. And we said, okay, where do we go find people? And we talked to Bob Foster, and he said, hey, you know what? Al Osborne and Bruce Willison were on the board of directors for Nordstrom's. And we said, okay, one evening I just shot an email to the dean and to Al Osborne, and before I know it, I actually didn't check my mail for two days, thinking, oh, nothing's going to happen. And I come and check my email, and they're like a string of emails. And before I know it, I start looking at the thread, And Al Osborne has sent an email to Blake Nordstrom, the CEO of the company, and then he's, Bruce Willison has also sent an email, and he's like, sure, anytime, I'm here to help you guys and help your students at UCLA Anderson. And before we know it, we have an interview with the VP of men's shoes at Seattle, and he's like, let me know a good time. And a week later, we've prepared our stuff, how do we want to interview, what do we want to do, and we fly down to Seattle. They spend not an hour, it wasn't allotted 1 hour, but they actually spent 2 hours with us. They looked at the product, they offered their frank and candid opinion. Then they actually took us down to the Nordstrom men's department in the Seattle downtown store, which is their flagship store. And they walked us around. They showed us different shoes. They actually showed us what makes for a good quality shoe. What should you be looking for? How should the sales be managed? What are the things to look out for? And that was just invaluable experience. To hear face to face the person who spent 30 years of his life just talking and walking shoes. And we came back with that experience. We utilized it in our primary research, in our business plan, to tell the clients what they should be looking for when they launch this product in the next 3 or 4 years in the US market. So to recap, what I learned out of this experience was, one, the importance of networking. Just having contacts to the right people can get you a foot in the door faster than you trying to kind of go all over the place. So that's the importance. The second thing is being prepared. We'd done intense market research, primary research. So when we went there, we were prepared, and they saw that. We had the samples, we had customer surveys, we had their product specifications, their factory specifications, and what they were looking to do. So that kind of structured problem solving that school teaches us, the importance of preparation and the importance of networking, it all kind of came together to provide us with a really very rich experience. And I think that's really what differentiates Gap from the other programs. In other B schools, you could just go spend a week out in Italy or France and hear some people talking. But this is an opportunity for you to, get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves, work, and actually help a company make a difference to their revenue and to their profitability.